Hello, my name's Martin Hamilton. I'm Director of Leeds Civic Trust. And this is the first in a series of clips about development and planning in Leeds. First of all, a word about Leeds Civic Trust. We're a charity. We've been around in Leeds for over 50 years now. And our main areas of focus are heritage, public amenity, and development and planning, including transport. Our planning input in Leeds goes back many years, and most of what we do is through our planning committee, which meets twice a month. We look through planning applications for schemes right across Leeds. We receive presentations from developers, and we also comment on broader policy issues. Now, clearly at the moment, our planning committee can't meet physically in our offices, so we have a fortnightly virtual catch-up. But I thought, in view of the things that we're seeing coming over our computer screens, it might be interesting to share some of that with more people. So this first video is really, I suppose, about the theme of flexibility. Now, with the coronavirus outbreak, there is a need for everyone to be more flexible, more adaptable, to get things done more quickly. And that goes for the planning process. Clearly, councillors can no longer meet physically as a panel. So we were very pleased that the government announced that it would be possible for decisions to be made by committee on a virtual basis. Now, most planning applications are already determined by officers without any input from councillors. It's really the major schemes or the controversial schemes that are determined at a panel. And so we think the democratic process is best served by at least some of these planning applications being dealt with in that way. One of the outcomes of this coronavirus outbreak could have been that all decisions were actually made by officers, and that would have been, in our view, a bad outcome. So we're very pleased that it's going to be possible for some of the major schemes to be considered in that way. Now, one of the major schemes that we considered at the Trust over the last 12 months is a big redevelopment of the Leeds General Infirmary. Now, the Leeds General Infirmary occupies a site in the city centre. Many of the buildings are very old, no longer fit for purpose, and so the plan is to sell off, declare surplus to requirement some of the buildings, but then to build some new wards, a new children's hospital, a major new facility on the same site, so as to improve the facilities for patients. Now, these proposals also included a new multi-storey car park, and at the time the application was presented to us, we did wonder whether, given the proximity of other car parking facilities in the city centre, the university has a multi-storey car park, the council owns a multi-storey car park not very far away either, whether actually this was needed or whether there was some way in which existing resources could be more effectively deployed. So it was interesting that we saw recently an announcement from the University of Leeds that they were going to allow healthcare workers to park in their car park free of charge. Now, the university is right next to the infirmary, so it's as good as a car park at the hospital. So health workers will be able to park there for free, 24 hours a day. Now, clearly at the moment, no one is using the university, no one is using those spaces, so there isn't an issue with people parking. But even if the university was fully functional, for 12 hours of the day, those car parks are empty. You know, after office hours, these car parks are empty, and it seemed to us that there was an opportunity to think about how shift workers maybe could access those parking facilities. People starting a shift after office hours, working through the night, why not use that resource that's already there rather than it just standing empty? And maybe if we do that, and thinking about climate emergency and the council's objectives to reduce air pollution, maybe if we start to do more of that sort of thing, we don't need to build as many multi-storey car parks. If cars are on their way out over the next few decades, it seems a bit silly to be providing more places to park them. So an example of flexibility forced on us because of this crisis, but actually something that we could have done and we should be doing in peacetime, if you like. That was the first example. The second example I want to talk about briefly was in relation to student accommodation. again university related, Leeds has seen an explosion in the number of purpose-built student accommodation in the city centre. Very tall buildings are going up as we speak, all clustered in a very small area, all serving our 4 university institutions, 3 of which are based in the city centre. Now, we think this is a good thing in general, purpose-built accommodation, taking pressure off the outlying districts of Leeds. This is all a very positive thing. However, the concern we have is, are these student dwellings adaptable? If the students stop coming, what can we do with these 20, 30-storey buildings? And that is a key issue. So we had a planning application for a student development on Carlton Hill, just on the fringe of the city centre. We were very happy with the scheme in terms of its design and location. But again, we asked the question, how could it adapt if students no longer come? And we saw, as the coronavirus outbreak started to increase, that international students, particularly Chinese students, actually were thinking that China was a better bet than the UK, bearing in mind that China had its outbreak much earlier and now it's tapering off. So students were wanting to leave our big cities in the UK and leave Leeds and go back to their home country. Now the question really is, will these international students come back in the same numbers? We will be seeing the large numbers of students, particularly from China, but also from India and other countries, returning to this country in future years. Because if we don't, these student buildings may not be used as much as the owners and developers thought. So then the question is, can they be converted? Can they be converted into ordinary apartments? And if that's the case, were they built with the same amenity levels? I mean, student accommodation is actually very good quality these days, but it doesn't necessarily have the added amenity values that an ordinary residential development would have. Does it have the green space? Does it have an affordable element, for example? So we think these are really important issues, and ones that Leeds as a city and other cities may well need to grapple with in the years to come. So that was just 2 examples of how the planning process needs to adapt, how we need to change in the face of this coronavirus onslaught, and really suggesting that in future we could maybe learn lessons from the way in which we've had to allow restaurants to open as takeaways and effectively allow change of use without really worrying about the paperwork. Allow deliveries to take place 24 hours a day where necessary. These are flexibilities that were introduced pretty much overnight by local authorities. Surely we can do the same thing when this virus has hopefully been eradicated. How can we be flexible? How can we be fleet of foot? How can we adapt? And how can we do so in a way that actually benefits the people in Leeds and around the country? Thank you.